Thanks to grace of heaven and the virtuous masters, mercy of the grand predecessor and predecessor, transmitters, lecturers, and everybody here, all of you for giving me this opportunity to present this topic called the life story of Confucius today. Okay. At some point or another, you likely heard of Confucius, or Kongzi, as he is known in China. Likewise, you have probably familiar with the fact that he was a great teacher, writer, and scholar, as well with a set of philosophical teachings named after him. Despite having lived over 2.5 millennia ago, Master Kong's teaching continued to inspire people today with a profound legacy, not just on China itself, but all throughout Asia and some parts of the Western world. Confucius lived during a time of division and instability in ancient China. The political uncertainty of the era created many different schools of thought and philosophies, all contending against one another. This was known as the 100 Schools of Thought. In Chinese, it's called 诸子百家. A golden age in Chinese philosophy. He himself became a part of this. He sought to work in advising governments, traveling around China from state to state. Confucius is a Latinized name of Confuzi. It also means Great Master Kong. His original name was Kongqiu. He's also known as Kongzongni. The most detailed traditional account of Confucius' life is contained in the records of the grand historian by Sima Qian, who was a Chinese historian of the early Han Dynasty and lived from 145 BCE to 86 BCE.
No, say it again.
Huh?
He just did dynasty. The previous slide. Go back one slide. That's just a slide.
No, that's...
He was a historian.
No.
He's talking about Sima Qian.
Right, exactly.
But
so
the historian
this is the
that
person
lived much later, almost 400
Yeah.
plus years after
Yeah.
Confucius.
a little picture of him. Can't really see. But.
Well, he's...
Right, so this guy, who wrote about him, lived at, much later on.
Roughly 400 years after.
Right, he's the one who recorded, what was happened.
Confucius roughly 500 BC, 550 roughly.
Yeah, it's
5 something, 500.
There.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
551 to 479.
Close enough. And by the way, he's almost contemporary with Buddha too. You know that, right?
A little bit older.
Yeah, older by 50 years at most, something like that. Yeah.
It's just that he's in this part of the world, and then Buddha was in another part of the world, which was in India.
But it's very interesting if you know world history. During that 500 BC period, it's considered the golden age of a lot of different civilizations. You know that. Okay, in China maybe it wasn't the golden age because it was during the warring states. They call it warring states, or not warring states. What do you call that? Spring autumn, right? So it was fragmented.
Autumn, spring.
Yeah, autumn, spring. Yeah, spring autumn.
Oh.
But from a cultural perspective, yes, you said from a societal perspective, it wasn't good because it was all fragmented and etc. Right? Different kingdoms and whatnot. But from a cultural, I guess, there were very, great advances or development in science, you know that? in philosophy. That's why she mentioned the 100 schools, right? 100 schools. Well, they divide to 10. There's 10, but that's okay. That's okay. Science, arts, etc. You know that. But simultaneously in India, right before Buddha's time or around Buddha's time, also philosophy, science, the arts also flourished. You know that. So in India, roughly the same time period, they also many schools of philosophy also came about. You know that? Okay, that's okay. And then similarly in ancient Greece, then I want to say the golden age of Greece. You know, Athens. You know, that's when Socrates came about, yeah, or a little bit later, but roughly the same period, within 100 years or so. And then Socrates, then Plato, then Aristotle, right, and also in the Western arts, you probably studied it in high school, maybe. The arts flourish, literature. The three great tragic comedies or authors, Aeschylus is one of them, Aristophanes another one, and somebody else. It doesn't matter. And besides philosophy, literature, also arts and architecture and development of geometry. When we studied geometry in high school, right? Euclidean geometry, all started roughly that same time. Very interesting. And also, if you want to go even deeper, they say even that's the beginning stages of the Mayan, Inca, and Aztec civilizations too, the Americas. Very interesting, huh? Very interesting. It seems like parallel. There are a lot of parallel, you can say, advances or development of different cultures throughout the world roughly that time. So you can say, because it makes sense, because that's like, say, the beginnings of the red period. Red means everything's flourishing. Everything, throughout the whole world. Not just Asia or Eastern Europe or wherever, or Mediterranean, but throughout the whole world. As a matter of fact, in Africa, they say some of the civilization, I don't want to say the Hindu Kush, but around there too. Okay? Or not Hindu, yeah. And also in the Nubian Empire, the Nubians, I guess that's present day Ethiopia and Sudan. Very interesting. Different flourish or beginning, to flourish. Very interesting. Sorry, that's world history for you.
Thank you, Lecture Kai. So, go back to Confucius. So many modern scholars have dismissed this biography as only legend. Nevertheless, from this manuscript, one can reconstruct a satisfactory outline of Confucius' life and influence. Confucius appears to have been devoted to the pursuit of knowledge in his words for the sake of the self. In the Analects, Confucius is recorded as saying, at 15, I set my heart on learning. At 30, I firmly took my stand. At 40, I had no delusions. At 50, I knew the mandate of heaven. At 60, my ear was attuned to the truth. At 70, I followed my heart's desire without overstepping the boundaries of what was right. So where are we? Okay. According to the records of the Grand Historian, Confucius was a descendant of a branch of a royal house of Shang, the dynasty that ruled China prior to the Zhou, and a dynasty which ruled China from around 1122 BCE to 221 BCE. His family, the Kong, moved to the small state of Lu, located in the modern province of Shandong in the northeastern China. So that's the map that was showed the late spring and autumn period, 5th century BC. As you can see, that part of old China, which is this part, and there's a lot going on at the time. Confucius' father's first wife, he married 3 wives. So the first wife, they had 9 daughters. 9. and then
women.
Yeah, they are all yes, there's kind of sex is going on around that time. So the second marriage, he got a son, but unfortunately the son was crippled, disfigured son. And then he married a 15. Here says 15, but I don't know specifically how. Oh, I just know I read many different ones, and they all said under 20. But this one says 15 years old girl from the Yan clan who gave birth to Confucius. So that's Confucius' mom, very, very young. So here in the record by Sima Qian refers to their relationship as a wild union, which very possibly indicates that Confucius was an illegitimate child, or a child born out of wedlock. I don't know exactly if that's what that means, but I've read that so I put it right here. He was born in a cave in Mountain Chou on September 28, 551 BCE. His father was very disappointed with an ugly baby he was. Because his first wife was a very jealous, very unfortunately vicious person at the time. And at the time they want boys, right? So his father, who was a general, I believe, was a general, right? And he needs somebody to carry on the whatever you call that.
DNA.
To continue their family generations, right? So he didn't want to give up, and at the time he's already 60 somethings, right? And then this third wife, she was not forced. She actually wanted to do what her father told her to do, which his father, believed that he's a good man. He will be, somebody but it's up to you. But if you wanted to marry this general, she's the youngest out of the 3 daughters in the Yan family. So it was her who wanted to marry him. So about 2 years later, she was pregnant after the marriage. Oh no, actually, I'm sorry, let me go back. She couldn't have a child. Then they went to this Mountain Chou, to ask the mountain god to give them a child, a son. And she actually had a dream. So in her dream, there were 5 goddess, 仙女,
Angels.
Okay,
Well,
I don't know.
No.
5, I guess they came from the heaven or whatever, appear in her dream, right? And then also in her dream, she saw an animal called qilin. I do not know how you translate, but it looks like a dragon, looks like a lion. I don't know, something that's you don't see it anymore. Right, it's the ancient.
Some people say It's similar to the Western unicorn, but it's more than that because it has like character traits of 10 different animals. Something something like that.
Something that we can never imagine what it looks like.
Was
But
it a real animal or only in the dream?
No, well, supposedly Confucius said he saw one. Not he saw one, but
the mother
mentioned
saw it in the dream, and on top of it, Confucius was on top of it. Like, here is a child, right on top of the cheating animal, and here's your son, here's your child. So that was described how she had this dream, and then the next day that they found out that she was pregnant. But because of she wants to have a harmony at home, right? She doesn't want to create problems, I guess. So she asked her husband to move to the mountain just to live a little bit until she gave birth. And so well, actually, before that, it was said that they need to, since that they got this baby from the god, right? They pray for it, and then yes, you got it. They're supposed to visit the whatever that temple was up in the mountain 3 times. Okay, so for the 3rd time, it was like late, almost that she's almost giving birth, right? Because it was delayed many times that they couldn't go back earlier for the third visit. But at that time, after her visit, she actually felt the pain of the stomach, and she was ready to give birth. And she was told, before that, that she needed to find an not open area, but a special place to give birth to this baby, which maybe it's supposed to be in a cave. So she did find a cave. And she was there to give birth to him. So he was born in a cave. But when he was born, right, they both very happy. But when the father got the baby from the mother was feeding a baby. when he got him and he looked at him, that's where he was very disappointed because he was extremely ugly. How ugly? So in the story it says that he has 7 concave, owl. Okay, one of the biggest part that shown on the baby was his head. So he doesn't have a round head like us. His head actually concaved in like that, and then like that aside. So it was so his father was very disappointed because his first son was crippled, and now he got this ugly baby. But anyway, that was in the story I read. Okay, so that's okay. He even tried to put him away, actually.
Oh.
But after they went back home, and the wife was resting, right? And and when she woke up, she's like, "Where's my son? Where's my son?" And he didn't speak. He didn't speak to her. Instead, it was one of the servants told her that they brought the baby back to the mountain. And then she moved to the mountain, stay with the baby. Okay. Okay, so this. In the Analects, Confucius' book of teachings, he writes that during his youth he was poor and was forced to acquire many different skills. It is clear that even though the fortunes of his family had declined, he was no commoner. He needed to help his mother and to support the family by working between jobs such as play an instrument in the funeral band. he's a very talented person, and he loves to learn. One day he saw his mother was teaching his brother and not teaching him. He was like 3 years old at the time. He actually was upset, and his mother saw him sitting, the stair step, and asking, "What's up? What's wrong?" And he said to her, "Why are you not being fair? Why are you not teaching me?" And his mother was saying, "I thought you were still young." And after that, she realized that he really wants to learn. He was a very eager person, wanted to learn a lot of things. And he's also a very quick learner. So after that, she started to teach both of them at the same time. Okay, so Confucius unquestionable belonged to the aristocratic. I'm not sure if that's how you, but it's a class. It's a ruling class known as the Shi. In the time of Confucius, most of Shi served as a court officials, scholars, and teachers. So here, they're not only sexes at the time, but they have like different classes of people. For example, they have 上士、中士、下士. But because his father was a general, so he knows that he belongs to the Si class. Okay, all right. Confucius' first occupation appears to have been as keeper of the Lu granary. A granary is a barn, right? It's a barn. Later, he worked as a supervisor of the fields, both with low positions, but consistent with his Shi status at the time. It is not known exactly when Confucius began his teaching career, but it does not appear to have much before the age of 30. In 518 BCE, he is said to have met the famous teacher Lao Tzu, who reportedly bluntly criticized Confucius for his stiffness and stuffiness and arrogance. Okay, so because he loves to learn and he wants to learn, and he always feel like he's not learning enough, so he wants to go look for somebody who knows a lot, and he wants to learn even more. So about his 30 years old, he left his hometown and went to look for Lao Tzu. And strangely enough, Lao Tzu actually knows that he was coming to look for him. Okay, so at the time, Lao Tzu was how old was he? 70. Okay, so he was already 70 years old, around that age. Okay, so Confucius eventually returned to Lu around 515 BCE. For several years after his return, he does not appear to have accepted a governmental position. Instead, it appears he spent most of his time studying and teaching, gathering a large number of students around him. Although one can only guess about the school's exact coursework, it undoubtedly included instruction in ritual, music, history, poetry. So when he was young, he ran around with the neighborhood boy, and they like to go to places where they perform rituals. So they both will like hide in a corner and watch them to do all kinds of like things, and he actually somehow he just loved it, you know. Let's see. Around 498 BCE, Confucius decided to leave his home in Luguo, okay, and embark on a long journey throughout the eastern China. He was accompanied by several of his disciples or followers. They wandered throughout the eastern states of Wei, Song, and I don't know if it's Chen, but it's spelled Chen, Chen, and at various times had their lives threatened. Yeah, so again, he wants to learn, so he travels around, right? So there's the Song, Chen, Wei is right here, and Lu is right here. That's where his hometown is. See how far he goes, you know, go around. Okay. Confucius was almost assassinated in Song. On another occasion, he was mistaken for adventurer Yang Hu, and was arrested. He was mistaken by that he was him. Okay, he was another general from somewhere. But you know, like at that time, it's very chaotic. And was arrested and held until his true identity became known. He was received with the great respect by the rulers of the states he visited, and he even seems to have received occasional payments. He spent much of his time developing his ideas on the art of government, as well as continuing his own teaching. He acquired a large followers, and solidification of the Confucian school probably occurred during these years. Not all of his disciples followed him on his travels. Several of them actually returned to Luguo and assumed positions with the Qi clan. It may have been through their influence that in the 484 BCE, Confucius was invited back to Luguo. Confucius was warmly received in Luguo, but there is no indication that he was given a responsible position. Little is known about his last year, although this would have been a logical time for him to work on many texts and documents he supposedly gathered on his journey. Much of his time was devoted to teaching, and he seems to have remained more or less distant from political affairs. This was an unhappy period for Confucius during about his final years. His only son, Kong Li, died about this time. His favorite disciple, Yan Hui, died the very year of his return to Luguo. And in 480 BCE, another disciple, who's this? Zilu. Okay, Zilu was killed in the battle. Confucius felt all of these losses deeply, and his sadness and frustration must have been intensified by the realization that his political ideas had found no support among the rulers of his own state. Confucius died in 479 BCE. His disciples conducted his funeral and observed a mourning period for him. I think it was Zilu actually spent years.
Yes.
It was a 2 or 3.
3 years.
3 years mourning for him. Yeah. Okay. Although we cannot be certain that Confucius wrote any of the works he is credited with, it is still possible to know something about the general nature of his philosophy. Shortly after his death, his disciples compiled a work known as Lunar, commonly translated as the Analects, but more accurately rendered as the edited conversations. This work consists of conversation between Confucius, his students, and occasional ruler. Yeah, I personally feel Lunar is pretty deep because the language, the different format language. Okay. The primary emphasis of the Lunar is on political philosophy. Confucius taught that the primary task of the ruler was to achieve the welfare or well-being and happiness of the people of his state. To accomplish this aim, the ruler first had to set a moral, good character example by his own conduct. This example would in turn influence the people's behavior. Confucius is the first Chinese thinker to introduce concepts that became fundamental not only to Confucian philosophy, but to the Chinese philosophy in general. The most important of these are the ren, right? Ren, it means benevolence. Yi is propriety or being proper. Li, ritual or ceremony. And zhi, wisdom. Xing, fidelity or faith or trustworthy. Confucius believed that junzi, or gentleman, must set the moral example for others in society to follow. In the Lunar, ren, what has been translated as humaneness, or benevolence, is the quality of a junzi should develop and attempt to encourage in another. Is considered the rules and ritual that are observed in religious and non-religious ceremonies, and as applied to the junzi, composed rules of behavior. Yi represents what is right and proper in given situation. The junzi, by observing the ritual and because of his good nature, always knows what is right. Confucius was basically a humanist and one of the greatest teachers in Chinese history. His influence on his immediate disciples was deep. His students continued to explain his theories until in the First Han Dynasty. The theories became the basis of the state ideology. The body of ideas reflecting the social needs of a culture. Okay, so I did those. I have like 3 short videos I originally wanted to show, but they're like less than 5 minutes on each. But unfortunately, I cannot get them connected. Even I go to the link, it won't play. So we'll have to skip this, unfortunately. So we have short stories to talk about. Yeah, so I picked 2, and these 2, kind of, it's pretty meaningful. This last one is basically, said that during his lifetime, he had this 3 biggest unfortunate incidents that he has to face. One was, his father and mother, while he was young, they all died. That's the first one. And then the second one, so the second one is also unfortunate because his wife ran away from him. What happened was that his wife wanted to have fame, wanted to have power, and she thought that she could get it from him. That's why she married him at the time. But it wasn't exactly how she expected to turn out. So she left him. And the other unfortunate, while he was this is like when he was in the older age, that he lost his son, his only son. So it's 白发送黑发人. He was very, very upset. So his son died when he was 69, when Confucius was 69 years old. Does anybody know how old Confucius lived to?
It's like 72 or something.
Yeah, low 70s.
Yeah.
No more than 80, that's for sure.
Right. So,
69? No.
I think 72.
Oh, that's yeah. No. Oh, right. Yeah, early 70s. Yeah, early 70s.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this short story. It's called 磨难见信义. I just titled it, stealing the right suit, because that was something that. Okay, so the characters include Yan Hui, Zilu, Zigong, and Confucius. So these are the main characters. Well, the main characters is Yan Hui. Yan Hui, as we know, if you don't, but we'll know now that he was the most favorite student that Confucius has. He's also named as Fu Sen. He's Kongzi is Zhi Shen, is like the highest saint, right? And then Fu Sen is the second highest. That's Yan Hui. Okay, so one day, how they got captured, by mistake, and so they were trapped in this area, and for 7 days they did not have anything to eat. Okay, nothing to eat, nothing to drink. Confucius at the time was still doing what he normally do, which is play his instrument. Does not let this hunger or whatever difficulties that bother him. Okay, so one day it was who was it? Let's see. Let me check, because I get both of them confused. Either Zigong or Zilu. Okay, hold on. Oh, okay. So Zigong, was one of the disciples that followed Confucius at the time. He saw how difficult, everybody is hungry. So he took some of his belongings, that's valuable belongings, and sell it, and use the money to buy some rice, and then he brought it back. And then Zilu, right? Zilu and Yan Hui, they both went out and found like a pot, so they can cook the rice, right? And then, but then at the time, Zilu, who was with Yan Hui, he walked away for something else. So it was Yan Hui by himself, and Zigong passed by at the time. He was standing right next. He passed by a well, and Yan Hui was cooking, right? And Zilu saw Yan Hui was eating the rice, he saw. Okay, yummy. Okay, so Zigong saw and did not feel happy about it, because it's served to everyone. Everyone should eat together. But why Yan Hui was eating by himself already. Okay, but he did not. Zilu did not go to him and Zilu.
No, you said 子贡 saw him.
Zigong saw him. Oh. Oh, you're right. Okay, I told you I get those two confused. So Zigong saw him, but at the time he did not go up to him and start saying, why did you eat first? So he did not do that. Instead, he went to Confucius. He went to him. Okay, he went to his room, and he bowed and he asked, I have a question. Can you tell me, a cultivator, right? A cultivator. Why a cultivator? Okay, I'm trying to translate this, but the whole sentence, okay, in Chinese it says, 人人廉士穷改节乎. So I think the translation is, would a cultivator have changed their character because of poverty or poorness? Okay, a cultivator, but we're talking about a cultivator who already reached certain level, like Yan Hui. So before he said who he was, he asked the question, and then he told Confucius, oh, by the way, Yan Hui did this. Can you explain? Okay. So a person like Yan Hui, do you think he will change his character? Like he will change who he's supposed to be because of hunger. For example, right at the time, everyone's very hungry. Then at the time, Confucius said to him, of course not. Okay, he was very firm. So first he asked a question, and then he said, is that possible? Then Confucius answered, of course not. Then Zigong told Confucius what Yan Hui did. Okay, so there it's important that he has steps. Like he doesn't just jump out and say, "Oh, guess what I saw? Like this person did this." So he did not say that, but he asked questions first, and then explain, "Okay, this is what I saw." So when Confucius heard it, right, he was not shocked or surprised, right? So instead, he said to him, I trust him. I trust his personalities. I trust his characteristics. I trust this person, okay, for a long time. Although you know, however, because you told me what you saw, I cannot, have doubts in him. So this is Confucius told Zigong. Maybe there is some reason, that he did what he did. So do not speak anymore, and let me find out. All right. Then Confucius asked Yan Hui to come to his room, right? And he said, listen to the conversation, it's very interesting. So Confucius said to Yan Hui, right? A few days ago, I had a dream, and I dreamed about my ancestor, right? And it must be that they want to protect us. Are you finished cooking the rice soup? I would like to prepare them and make offering, okay, to the ancestor. And when Yan Hui heard, and he says to Confucius, Confucius, the rice soup is no longer can be used to make offering to the ancestors. Okay, and the Confucius asked him why, and he said, while I was cooking, okay, the steam was a lot of steam, and the steam went up to the air and all the way to the top of the roof, and as a piece of roof dropped into the rice soup. Okay, so he explained. So it's no longer clean. Okay, it's no longer clean. Then I use the spoon, pick it up. Originally, I thought I wanted to throw it away, right? But then I thought I don't want to waste food. Then I ate it. So that rice soup is already been touched, right? If we put it to offer, if we offer to the ancestor, don't you think that's it's not right? Disrespectful. Okay, he said that to Confucius. Isn't that disrespectful? Then Confucius says, "Oh, that's why. If I was you, I would do the same." So he said that to him. So after then Yan Hui left, okay, and then of course Confucius explained to the other disciples, right, and so as you can see, he trusted him, right? He believed he's he's a virtuous person, not because of, in this case, hunger. Right? Hungry. Everyone's hungry. You will do things sort of like, you have set of principles to follow, right? Not because the environment will change these principles, because these principles are within. These are something that's I think I could say these principles are like came from innate. Like it's not right to do so, you wouldn't do it. I'm talking about a real virtuous person. Okay, you will follow those rules. All right. So in the story we talked about Xing, right? He trusted him. That's number one, and then the righteousness, where he doesn't just go and so the moral of the story is, even though we see something, it doesn't mean that's exactly what happened. So you cannot assume that's what happened. There's a reason behind it. So we always have to be cautious not to assume things until you find out what's the real reason for a person's behavior. Okay, so I thought that was a good story. Okay. Oh, okay. The other one is very interesting. In the 三字经, okay, I don't know if it's 三字经, but there's a sutra. It comes with 3 words. Karen, do you teach the kids 三字经? No? Okay. 在人之初性本善. Right? That. There's a part that says 习仲尼师相陀. Okay. So the story about this, it's really an experience. We know how Kongzi like to travel state to state, right? And not only he'll speak to the ruler at the time, or he will find places. he will listen. If he know somebody is very knowledgeable, he will go look for them. So one day, he was on the horse carriage, right, and passed by this road, and he saw there were 3 kids playing on the road, right, and one of them was not moving. Like moving meaning, like if they see the carriage coming, they should run away. But this kid, 象驼, okay, 象驼. That was an interesting character. I have to look at how to pronounce it. Anyway, so this 象驼 kid, at the time he was only 7 years old. He didn't want to move. He actually was just stand there or sit there, still continuing playing with his thing. What was he playing? He actually using either rocks or whatever, sand, making either a castle or a city, that has walls. So he was building them. So it didn't bother him the carriage coming by his direction, who was still there. And then Confucius came out from his carriage and asked him, it's dangerous if you don't move away. You can get run by, like a carriage, a horse carriage. And so he looked at him. He didn't know who he was. He was just telling him. He said to him, hold on, let me find out exactly, because it's interesting what he said. Okay, where is it? This one, I think. Yeah. Oh, okay. So by the way, let me just go back. So he 象驼, right? He's a child prodigy. He's defined as a child prodigy. It's amazing. And he was only 7 years old, right? And he would describe that he's Confucius' teacher, one of them. So that he was playing using the sand, making like a castle kind of thing or a city, and he was not, he didn't want to move because he was playing his thing. Then the Confucius came down, right, and he asked, can you move away and go to the side and play? Then he said, then 象驼, right, this little child. He said, from ancient time, 从古至今. 5 more minutes? Okay. 从古至今, right? From ancient time, I only heard that the horse carriage need to go around the wall, for example, the wall, right? Okay. It's not the wall need to move because the carriage, move out of the way. So he said that to him. So when Confucius heard, and he was extremely astonished, right? And so he decided to test him, right? So here. Oh, okay. I forgot to show this. This was the first story. That's those people characters, and okay, right here. So he was very astonished, and he wanted to ask questions to this child. So he began to ask. I counted. There were a set of 14 questions straight at him. Okay, I tried my best to translate this. So he said, what mountain has no rocks? And then he said, what water has no fish? And what door cannot be closed? What car has no wheels? Right? And what kind of cow don't give birth? What kind of horse don't give birth? And what kind of sword has no ring? This is a little tough for yeah, this is a little confusing, but that's okay. We'll move on. So more questions. What fire does not give out smoke? What kind of man has no wife?
There's lots.
What kind of woman has no husband? What day is too short and too long? What kind of tree has no branches? What kind of city has no officials? Who has no alias? Alias in alternative name, because in the old day they always have.
Courtesy.
Courtesy
Okay,
name.
right. So it didn't take him long to answer all those questions. He was boom, 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 and then Confucius felt like, oh, interesting, interesting. How about so I did not write them down, but they alternate. So once Confucius asked all these questions, and he's like, how about I ask you questions? So all the questions that he asked Confucius, none of them was correctly responded from Confucius. And then Confucius asked him, how about let's play a game? Let's do some gambling. I have this game in my car. You want to, let's play it together. Then he gave out how many? Okay, 1, 2, 3. At least 5 reasons to Confucius why not gambling.
Why not to gamble? Yeah. he was teaching Confucius.
So yeah.
Child teaching the master.
Yeah, so after Confucius heard this, and he decided to I guess 拜师, So he's also named to be Sheng Gong. Gong, that's grandpa. Yeah, Confucius is 圣人, right? So he's on top of him. They call him 圣公. 圣 is saint, right? But it's a father of saint, something like that. Okay. That's it. But
a good story.
Yeah. Oh, can I finish? Actually, it's very unfortunate about him, about Xiang Tuo, because he's gifted, right? He's a prodigy. Once the news went to other places, right? And we know it's a chaotic period. There were 2 states who sent militaries, one to capture this young kid because they wanted to, use him, right? So they keep looking for him and search for him. And his parents knows, and hide him inside a cave. They found a cave and they used stones to block the entrance, so nobody can see him. And what the parents did was just to bring meals to him every day for like that for 5 days. Okay, straight 5 days. So they will bring food to him. He doesn't come out. But then they found out, those 2 states of militaries, they found out, they waited outside of the cave, and they actually fought each other first because they wanted to get the kid, right? So one of them won, and there's only one state military waiting for him to come out. And unfortunately, he was starving inside. He wasn't able to eat. Then the parents was talking again. They were saying, the mother was so worried about him. He's like, he must be so hungry. I need to go get food for him. And then his father said to the wife, the husband said to the wife, "Don't worry, he'll be all right." Remember the day that he was born? They couldn't cut or remove or separate the umbilical cord. They couldn't. They tried to use stones try to like smash it, do a lot of things. They couldn't, put apart. And then they used, I don't know how they found out what to use, but they actually found out that they used a leaf, piece of leaf, okay, leaf on the tree, and then it easily cut apart. Okay, this conversation was unfortunately heard by the people who wanted to capture him, right? So when he got them, when they got him, right, they cruelly used the what they heard from his parents, which was a piece of leaf, to cut his head off. So he actually died at the age of 12. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, wow.
Is that because he didn't help them?
Is that? Oh, thank you. Yes. The point, he didn't want to go with them. He said, I was I forgot what country or what states that he belongs to, and he wanted to stick to his principle. He said, I was born here, I live here, I will die here. I will not go anywhere. So they couldn't do anything about it. So they killed him. Yeah. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. I ask God's forgiveness I ask God's forgiveness when I have said anything wrong, and I ask everybody to correct